Welcome to Transformers, a program specially designed for HR professionals to be able to discuss, showcase their achievements, and to be able to teach us about various topics and professional areas in HR. Today we have with us Dimashi Sigera, Deputy General Manager, Head of HR, First Source Dialogue Solutions Private Limited. Hi Dimashi.
Hi.
And welcome to the program. Dimashi, we've had this series of programs covering all aspects of HR and HR services. And today we've perhaps picked an important area in terms of onboarding and orientation. And what a better person to have, because you will deal with these areas with a lot of youngsters and a lot of people on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
So maybe take us from step number one. What does it feel? How does it feel to be able to hire a lot of people and to be able to handle these youngsters?
It's quite interesting. My average age is from 18 to 24.
Okay.
So I have about 700 of them.
All right.
We onboard almost about 50 a month.
Okay.
So I think onboarding and orientation are two different things.
Absolutely.
And depending on what level we hire them, the program is different.
Of course.
So if I talk about my entry level, I hire customer service associates. So they go through a process of selection and they come for induction. They're all excited to understand what this company is.
Okay.
Most of them have never worked before.
Okay.
So doesn't understand what a work environment is. So we start from the beginning.
Right.
So first induction is more or less introducing the people in the company, sometimes even explaining the functions in the company.
Okay.
Once they go on to their work area, they might not be able to interact so much with the other functions. So we explain to them what it is, and we make it more interesting, because when I was 18, which was not so long ago,
Of course not.
to now 18-year-olds, the expectations and requirements are very different.
Very different, absolutely. Probably start where you talk about the shared services role as well.
Okay.
And that puts a perspective to the whole process of what you'll be discussing.
Yes. Actually, I can start about 10 to 11 years ago, me myself. I joined a company which did shared services, and I had no clue what it was. They were into financial shared services. So basically, it was not a industry, or sometimes even now not very well known. So what does shared services do? They take areas of large companies or any international companies and do some work which they can do effectively rather than the main organization.
Yes.
Let's take a telecom company. Their main requirement is to sell mobile services. But selling mobile services, there are many processing, documentation, etc. that has to be done. So they would prefer to look at their core business and give us the shared services work. So documentation, processing, all will be done by us. But that is very basic level shared services. Now it has gone up the ladder. We add value. So some shared services even do research, legal services. Now we are getting a HR shared service as well to Sri Lanka with a large company. So it is not just processing. It needs professionals to think and do activities as well. But that is, as you grow, you will be able to do it. Plus, we get work from international companies. So we might work for a US company while sitting in Sri Lanka.
Sure.
So that is the gist of shared services. We have many companies in Sri Lanka doing it, and it's a very interesting area. The work is such that we have to get youngsters who are more or less studying.
All right.
Because depending on the shared service area, that qualification needs to be acquired by them. Okay. So as I said, there's finance, there's legal services, there's HR, there's publishing, research. So that sort of work.
Okay. What would entice a young person to join such an organization?
See, from nowadays youngsters, expectations from work is very different. They would, from my experience, they would want fun at work environment. They work compensation, they want above market compensation for their activities, for their age and experience. Plus, they need to do a challenging work. Most of the time I see nowadays young entry-level employees, they get very bored with doing the same thing over a year. So we need to give them job enhancement or job enrichment most of the time. So in our environment, the benefit is that the opportunity to move fast is also there. You don't have to wait 4 years to get a promotion also. Because the shared services need the second level leaders to come from the pool of processing, because then you will know what is happening. Not that we can't hire externally, but that is required. And shared services grow very fast. So in one of my companies, we were 27 1 month, we were 300 in 12 months. So the people who are there get many opportunities. The other aspect which I was talking about was fun at work. We understand some of the work that we do might be in different hours, because it is not a 8:30 to 5 job most of the time. Sometimes it becomes mundane as well. So we most of the time have breakout areas. A breakout area is a relaxing room which possibly would have cable TV, coffee machines, games, pool table. So such a work environment is also is a attraction for them.
Absolutely. If you put in an M&M machine, I'll be there as well. Yeah. But does it not become difficult when you have a natural attrition at that speed happening all the time?
So let me explain to you. Depending on the business area, the attrition levels are different. But the business fundamentally works on a plan of certain attrition. We would not work on a attrition level a conglomerate would work on. Yes, so our business plan is with that. But the thing is, just as we give growth to individuals in the company, some of the individuals' aspirations in career might be different. For example, if I'm studying a finance qualification, first 3-4 years, I might not be able to get a full-flown accountancy or finance manager job. I might have to go for classes. So if I work for this shared services, maybe my work starts at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I go for classes and come back. Yes, obviously when I finish my requirement of studies, then I would think of moving away. So that is one reason. The other part that the attrition would happen is, you see this in the shared services, there are so many companies, the enticement of another company also becomes a bit more. So as you live in this industry, it's a bit difficult to move out to another as well. You get used to the culture and the work environment.
Dimashi, when you go into universities and educational places to find these youngsters, what do you look for?
In this industry, the main area we are looking for is attitude towards work and flexibility.
Okay.
If you go to a university, we would get a pool of people who have the same qualification.
Yeah.
What differentiates them is their willingness to explore opportunities and be flexible with their work schedules.
Okay.
We also would work as per stipulated legal framework. But because we're working for US, UK, sometimes European and Australia and Philippines, that sort of work, we need to work on different schedules. And in Sri Lanka, sometimes we have a reluctancy to look at that work and window. But having said that, there are a lot of opportunities working that window, because you have different free times, different activities you can take up. So flexibility is one thing. The other thing is the attitude. As I said, they need to be able to work in a team. There are individual contributor roles, but more or less even individual contributors are in a team environment. So that attribute is very important.
Okay.
And of course, soft skills.
How would you check this at the point of entry?
Most of the shared services companies have very stringent entry selection processes.
Okay.
depending on the role they come for, we check in our selection processes whatever the skills that we need.
Okay.
Let's say for my company, which is contact center, we would check on comprehension, language fluency. On top of that, aptitude test as well, being able to troubleshoot a customer's requirement, and mostly typing.
Okay.
But where if you look at a finance shared services, they would look at
Criteria would be different.
finance part of it, and maybe the soft skills of communicating with the international client.
Sure, sure. In terms of attitude, since it was an important thing, how do you check up on that?
That's a very difficult thing to check on. I would say there is no test that we can run on that. We have a lengthy conversation more or less with candidates, and we don't talk about experience, work, all that. We talk with them about their life, their experiences in school, their hobbies, where they see themselves. And with those areas, we see sometimes how they've approached. We do discuss, I'm sure you also know, about scenario-based interviewing. So we let them speak about their experiences and assess on those, how they have approached.
Yeah, scenario-based and assessment centers and all these things, they have their pluses and minuses, but they all add to the picture of checking out attitude. In all of this, if you were to get down to the real topic of the day, let's say onboarding, that process, what are the major elements that come to your mind that you need to remember when you think of an onboarding process? I'm asking this, Dimashi, because in certain HR people would think onboarding means, you bring the fellow, he's on board. We're very happy about it. But there's a lot of things that you need to think about. Not necessarily steps, but what comes to your mind? What factors?
So onboarding is actually the result, the success of the onboarding is with the employer. And first 90 days are very important. Onboarding is not one day of induction, I took you around, now go and sit and do your work. Onboarding is ensuring the employee is able to fit into the role he or she was selected within the period that we take as the learning curve. And that learning curve can be different for different roles. So us as an organization, or me, first thing I look at is to introduce the individual to the company first. So we do a program of having a buddy, a person to go to. Not everyone would walk up to HR and say, this is not like this. Where do I go to issue? So first thing is they always have a buddy in that time period, who is an unofficial friend they have. Secondly, we are very clear about what are the deliverables that they have to give month on month, and the support that we give as an organization. So we have a very detailed plan on it. The challenge in that is sometimes people who are already having work, when they get a new person, they can't give that time to that individual. But we have to ensure we have given the right tools to the newcomer to be able to succeed. For me to hire another replacement for that person, the cost and the time I put on it is much more than me putting the time to get the person to be successful. It's important that the employee understand the culture of the organization in the onboarding program, because we all come from different environments, and more than the work or the manager, sometimes my work environment is not conducive for me to continue. I don't know that at the entry point of time. So that introduction has to happen. I believe the first 90-day impression that you give to an employee lasts a long time.
I would think so, yes. Probably long years ago when we used to study, they used to say, first 24 hours, if you can click that, it's fine. Because when this youngster goes home, youngster of all ages, like you said, 18 just a couple of years ago, there's either, in that case, there'll be a parent, they'll ask you, so how was work? What's the first answer you're going to give? Are you going to say, that's the place to go? Or are you going to say, well, he was sort of okay? 90 days covers it all. All the impressions, I had suspected that such and such place was excellent, but now I know it's excellent. In terms of orienting them, technical versus behavioral competencies, technical might be relatively easier, but in this particular industry, do they actually look at the behavioral to that extent?
What you said is true. Technical is the easiest, and we ensure in the first month we give that skill. Our onboarding more or less has pre-process that is very technical in covering all the skills that they require. In that we do put the behavioral parts of it. As you know, for a behavior change, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a continuous enforcement you have to do of the behavior that we want the employee to display. We can't only ask the employee to display it if the respective supervisors and the environment also doesn't display that behavior. What the organization have to do in that context is we more or less look at making every interaction to give out the behavior that we expect.
Okay.
So the one part is our value system. So when we take decisions as an organization or a manager, we need to display that we stick to the values that we speak about.
Sure.
Yes, you can do a training. Training depends on how long they retain the knowledge. Sure. We must help them practice the behavior.
Yes.
For that, the supervisor layer needs to be strong, because HR can't come and say, okay, you're not displaying the value. Sure. We as HR have to empower the lines and upskill the line manager. Sure. To be able to handle it. I believe every line manager is a small HR person.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you also sit with them and discuss about their talent behavior and their talent map and their whole progression process?
So in my current organization, we have developed a career map, mainly because they need to see where they're going with what they're doing. Sometimes we see reluctance to upskill themselves. Sometimes they think it's more work if I learn this. Yeah. So to ensure that they understand why they need to learn it, we have said, you complete these stages in your work environment to be able to go to the second stage. Moment you finish these areas in your second stage, you will move on to that. And we have to practice it as well. So they have seen individuals moving through it. Okay. And so I have let's say a 4-level, entry levels have to go through 4 levels of a career to be eligible to become a supervisor. Okay. And that 4 levels can be covered minimum in 18 months. If you're maximum in 18 months. If you're really into it, you can cover it in about 12 months. Okay. And we have ensured we will only look at the promotees through the pool who has completed that requirement. Okay. As an organization, we give the opportunity for them to upskill themselves as well. So it's more a pull basis than a push basis for upskilling. Okay. With the line managers, what we discuss is what are your high potentials? But because we have an internal job process, posting process, we don't handpick individuals. Yes, each manager has to groom a set of people that they can pull up, but we will not handpick those individuals if they don't go through the assessments that we need them to finish. Okay. That's how we manage talent at up to assistant manager level, more or less. Assistant manager level onwards are mostly based on deliverables. Okay. If you're meeting your deliverables, it is a norm. You have to exceed your deliverables, more or less. Okay. So exceeding expectation is something that we look at.
Okay. Do you also look at potential versus performance, or do you does it play a greater role to look at performance only?
No. In my current organization, the entry level is based on performance. Okay. But I believe after a certain level, it's about potential.
Potential.
Yeah.
How would you measure, let's say, let's take a borderline just before assistant manager and a guy below. How do you know this guy has the potential?
We give trial roles to individuals.
Okay.
So we have many projects, improvement projects, okay. Organization-wide projects. So okay. We ask for volunteers. We don't force it around people. Okay. I personally don't believe giving something forcefully is a way to get results.
Yeah, true.
But we can we can influence the voluntary process also.
Oh, yes. Reword it, but it does the same thing.
Yes, because actually, because they are young and not mature in certain professional stages, they do need to understand the bigger picture, and someone has to sit with them and explain to them. So coming back to potential we look at by giving them the different projects, areas to do. So these are not wide projects of 6 months, 7 months. Maybe it's a very small area. We look at more or less the approach to it. They might fail in the project. Maybe the final outcome is not what we wanted. But if they had looked at different areas and analyzed it and gotten the process right, then that is a potential.
So you'll be looking at the rigor more than the end result. In terms of HR professionals in this particular industry, and you've been here for, you've been in the industry for long enough to be able to give a bit of advice. What would you tell them to do?
This is not an industry where HR sits in their cubicle and works. And the business sometimes don't take HR seriously if you don't know the core business. HR needs to know operations, whatever the operation it runs on, thoroughly. I think HR's perspective of people's persons still remain, but we are business partners at the end of the day. We need to enable the business with our people aspect. We've had to hire some HR people, and the biggest struggle that I've had is everyone's doing personnel management. HR individuals are not looking at the bigger picture of how a business runs, how do we give the talent that they require, how do we run performance management. Sometimes HR itself is reluctant to remove individuals who are not performing, saying this is the process. But we need to understand if the operation or the business is not performing at the required level, then it is more or less HR also has a part to play in it.
Absolutely.
And if our line and HR professionals always say operations or the line managers are not doing something. We need to figure out have we empowered them and upskilled them enough to manage HR issues or that part. And now in my organization, if I see my HR department expanding, which we can't have because as the organization expands, I can have a 50 people HR organization. I need to move my frontline HR work to the line managers. And we need to be more strategic and thinking of future business, where is the business going, what are we going to do to support it. So I would say we are moving from a counseling, making people happy role to driving performance.
Sure. If you were to move or remove that hat of shared services for a moment, and from your vast experience of HR, if you would like to tell us someone from outside looking at this particular industry, what type of professionals would be attracted to this kind of industry, and what is your message to them?
Okay, this industry is viewed as a very hard-working industry.
See, when you come out, what happens?
It is. It is because everything is a compared thought, isn't it? It's a comparison. If I look at it against my normal environment of 8 to 5 work where I do my area of work only, and that's I've been doing for the last 5-6 years, then this work of working maybe 1 to 10, working in a very performance-driven environment would look at as a big change or a lot of hard work. But I must say, I mean, I was some years ago an entry-level executive, and today I'm heading HR for a company. The growth this industry gives is immense, mainly because it is growing at a rate, and each individual have to always improve their skills. You can't be complacent. The professionals who will be wanting to be in this industry are those who want to learn more than their respective area. If I'm HR, today I'm HR. but I know finance part of it. I know process improvement, which is very important, quality related ones. And I understand how the business works. But if I decided to be only doing recruitment, talent management and so forth, I can work in another organization.
Yeah.
But I don't have that edge. I'm not saying people who work outside don't have that edge. I'm saying if you're a passionate person to go beyond HR or your profession, sometimes they give the opportunity because it has a different exposure. But it depends on your personal aspiration end of the day. Yeah. It is a very mundane work sometimes for the associates who are processing.
Okay.
Only thing that I see is I think our salaries are quite interesting.
Technology. Companies are now moving into, I'm still trying to revolve around our topic because it's these maze of topics that bring the entire program, transform us together. Technology seems to be coming into this process of onboarding and orientation. And I was just having a chat to a head of HR and he's saying, all the apps are also coming up in terms of orientation. So the moment they come, apparently, they get a little app downloaded so that they can go through the orientation process even at home. I was wondering, and here I am, old as ever, thinking of the CEO coming and giving a speech, the head of departments taking the small fellows from place to place kind of thing. How old am I?
Not that much.
Technology.
But it depends.
Okay.
It depends on how the business works.
Okay.
Imagine it's a industry or a business that is based on virtual teams.
Yeah.
They would need to do that because flying in everybody would not make sense.
Sure.
But Sri Lanka has most of our organizations have not gone to that level. But for organizations that have evolved to that level, yes, that is it. Because the time and the cost pertaining to that onboarding reduces. And maybe the skill that the person needs is that. But if for the environment that I work in, it is important that human interaction and guidance is there. I don't believe much in e-learning.
Okay.
It's a very bold statement to make because e-learning is effective depending on the maturity of the person who's learning it.
Absolutely.
I have very young individuals coming in where e-learning is sometimes too boring to go through that whole module. Click next and finish the test and they pass the test because they can understand the content very fast. There are modules that you can do with e-learning. There are modules that you cannot do with e-learning. As HR, we should understand the difference between the two. In onboarding, we should use technology because we can't still be in the old ages. We must use the technology to make life interesting to the individuals who are getting onboarded. All of us still gets really excited when we see an app or an application. That is quite exciting. And there are a lot of, you might have heard about gamification, etc.
Tell us about it.
The little bit I know.
Okay.
It is a learning platform based on games and those sort of a connection. So maybe I want to increase the typing speed of my associates. There's a game to play for it.
Okay.
While they're having fun, they're learning something.
Sure.
Then we also use this online onboarding. We have our senior executives in other locations.
Sure.
They cannot travel.
Okay.
So we would do video conferences, pre-recorded messages.
Okay.
Sometimes it's interactive also.
Absolutely.
Again, depends on what your end objective is.
Sure. Novel ideas come up all the time. I know of an organization, every time they have a batch of people, of course this particular organization, the attrition level is very low. So they get some of the newer guys and the older guys to go and do a CSR project together.
Oh.
And they would actually start off big major CSR projects. They'll build a house for some poor people. You'll find the old guys will carry the bricks and the new guys have to plaster it, and it might take 3-4 weekends. But at the end, they're so close.
Yes.
And the buddy system works that much better. So innovative ways of doing these things also don't necessarily need technology all the
Yes.
time. It just needs that human touch as well. For a youngster joining your industry, what is your message to them?
Be open to opportunities
Okay.
and take those up. And you cannot be complacent.
Okay.
You have to put your efforts while you're young to reap the benefits when you're a bit older.
That could be a message for all of us, I guess. Dimashi is who we've had this evening, and we're discussing elements of onboarding and orientation. Dimashi, thank you very much for
Thanks.
being with us. It's been fantastic. And these areas together will form the program Transformers. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Niroshan, for having me.